You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.
You're tapped in, so let's get right to it. Burkina Faso. Think about that name. It is a country in West Africa, a part of the Sahel states, also a member of the AES that comprises of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, also Chad, and hopefully other African countries will become a part of this bloc called the AES. Um, what is significant is actually an understatement in terms of what Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger has been accomplishing, is accomplishing, and by all accounts will continue to accomplish in their 3 to 4 year liberation and independence, sovereignty from the colonization of France, the UK, America, United States, and other parts of the European um, West. So here we have Burkina Faso. Extraordinary work in terms of what they're doing. What was told to them could not be done by their French colonizers and others. They are actually turning the world on its ear. Burkina Faso, in terms of agriculture alone, we're just going to talk about agriculture today. I mean, they have gold, they have other resources, but they are focusing on growing something that is a necessity for human existence, for human survival. That's food. They're making it quite clear that they're not going to leave their dependence upon food to others, namely Europeans or, ex-colonizers who had a hand in, sending them food, sustaining them. Burkina Faso again has stepped out onto the field and has decided that it would feed its people and its brothers in neighboring countries. So Burkina Faso's agricultural revolution is one of the most remarkable stories of modern food sovereignty, especially in this day and age. Okay. So we tip our hats to them in that respect. Now, despite historical warnings from Western experts that the Sahel's arid climate made growing crops like apples, pineapples, and strawberries, as well as onions, impossible. The nation has defied those odds to become a major agricultural hub. Now, in spite of what they've been told by whites, those who have colonized them for hundreds of years, you would think that because of that colonization, Europeans being in that country, raping, pillaging, and stealing its resources for so long, the people would be indoctrinated with inferiority complex, that everything that they say, Europeans, that they would believe and not, when you actually see some of this behavior in a lot of African countries right now, the puppet governments still trust and believe everything that they're told by their European colonizers. In this respect, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger saying, no, we tend to think different. In fact, our minds, our knowledge, our understanding, our connection to the land tells us totally different. That everything you guys couldn't do or said couldn't be done, we're pretty sure we can. And that's what they've set out to do. So they've broken the impossible crop barrier. Okay. Strawberries, once thought entirely unsuited to the soil there. All right. Burkina Faso now produces up to 2,000 tons of strawberries annually, known locally as red gold. Okay. This crop has become a leading lucrative export to neighboring countries. There's that. Pineapples. The country broke its production records recently, harvesting its own pineapples in the Sahel. These are increasingly processed domestically and exported, proving indigenous research in organic fertilizers can drive excellent yields. Apples, through state supported initiative and solar panel cold chains, thousands of families, primarily women, successfully cultivate apples in regions where they previously didn't exist. And it was said that only America and some parts of Europe produces apples. Burkina Faso is in that game now. Wheat and rice. The country shifted dramatically from its reliance on foreign aid, achieving food self-sufficiency, and even bringing an end to the importation of hundreds of thousands of tons of ice. Guess who from? You guessed it. And that got Donald Trump kind of in a tiff as well. You know, Burkina Faso again is turning the world on its ear, not just in terms of its agricultural um, uh, innovativeness, but also in terms of how they mine things, what they're producing now, electric cars, things of this nature. They're really setting the tone for the rest of Africa. And this is probably why you see a lot of conflict and issues continuing to expand or be more prevalent in social media or the news. It is to distract those people, those countries, those governments in Africa from aligning themselves with what is proven to be the best thing for them: independence. Independence. That's the thing. So now again, they have technological and mechanical innovation, not just agricultural, as I mentioned, in response to the push for total food sovereignty is really what they're pushing towards. In fact, it's what they've accomplished. And that should be a signal here to Black Americans, FBAs, or whatever you like to refer to yourselves as. We are food dependent. We are water dependent. We are everything dependent. And for those who are dependent upon someone else, will always find themselves at the bottom. We have to create for ourselves food independence. We have to create for ourselves water independence, productivity independence. This is what we must do. All right. And as such, it would be wise for each and every one of us to participate in this sort of thing. Of the agricultural progress they're making in Burkina Faso is something, again, to give them a lot of praise and, recognition for. Now, that being said, again, we have Mali, also Niger, in these stages of development, agriculturally speaking. But again, that's not the only thing in terms of accomplishments in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. You have the technological as well as the mechanical innovations taking place over there, some of which are extraordinary in and of themselves. Now, in response to the push for total food sovereignty, Burkina Faso has embraced aggressive mechanization, investing heavily in modern equipment and solar panel or solar powered irrigation, excuse me. And that's another thing also. The thing they've done in terms of irrigation, the infrastructure, all that they didn't have previous to Ibrahim Traore's coming into power there, or again, feats that are gaining a lot of recognition and applause to the Burkinabe people and government. Now, there's a lot going on there. The industrialization of the country, locally made equipment, also is something that is that other countries of the world is taking notice of. But mainly, the fact that they've created for themselves an agricultural climate, so to speak, where they're very successful in terms of agriculture, and they are exporting these foodstuffs and fruits, vegetables. What they've come to create is something, again, to be praiseworthy of. Tomatoes is something they also grow a lot of. These accomplishments, agriculturally speaking, are some things that, hey, a lot of countries told them they could not do. And irrespective of that, they've done it. Now, I have a clip, as always. I want to share this clip with you guys because, again, it brings a little more context and clarity to this issue. What Burkina Faso is accomplishing, again, this is extraordinary stuff. They aren't getting enough credit, but the world knows, the world sees it. Those who want them to fail are actively striving to create this destabilization in the country to knock it back another 5 to 10 years, just enough time so that those who are trying to keep the country destabilized, could go in and extract more resources so that they have, France in particular, enough to sustain them in gold, uranium, bauxite, things of that nature, things that they have over there in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Now, let's include this clip. Before I do, please like, share, follow, comment, and subscribe. You are tapped in. This is the art of political discourse. So thank you for your participation. Let's drop this clip. All right.
This is D Perimeter in Burkina Faso, less than 100 miles from the brutal edge of the Sahara Desert. For anyone raised on Western textbooks, the truth is simple. Farming here is impossible. That's what we're taught in school. And yet, under this relentless heat, they're forcing the earth to produce rice, wheat, onions, and strawberries. They're even growing real apples, a crop once thought native only to Europe or the US. Today, Burkinabe farmers are proving the world wrong.
At this center, we produce cocoa seedlings. And beyond that, we're experimenting with coffee, apples, and everything else related to agriculture we thought couldn't be produced in Burkina Faso. That's what we're trying to develop to show the world that it is possible.
Just look at these massive pineapples being harvested by hand and shielded from the sun by simple paper bags.
L'ananas du Faso.
This goes beyond the crops. They're even raising fish in the middle of the desert. So how are they doing it? The Burkinabe are deploying clever, resilient methods to make this happen, and everyone is involved, including President Ibrahim Traoré shows up in military fatigues deep in the fields. He's physically inspecting bags of tomatoes and talking directly to the farmers whose hands feed the nation. His message is chillingly clear. As long as a nation lacks independence over what it eats, it cannot talk about true independence.
Tant que nous n'aurons pas cette indépendance alimentaire-là, on ne peut même pas parler d'indépendance.
As long as we don't have that food independence, we can't even talk about independence. Those who beg are always at the bottom. If we spend our time asking for food or going to the ends of the earth, we'll always be at the bottom.
The goal is to achieve absolute food sovereignty, something most African nations still struggle with.
If you don't have food sovereignty, if you don't have energy sovereignty, if you don't have technological sovereignty, then you don't really have full independence.
To get there.
And this is something we here in the United States, the Black nation, Black Americans need to or should understand, especially when we're talking about freedom and equality, things of that nature, respect. The fact of the matter is we could actually can't receive any of that or garner it if we aren't producing something for ourselves. We live, most of us, in food deserts, water deserts, financial deserts, things of that nature. This is a great example what's taking place in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger for American Blacks here in these United States in terms of doing for self. Get the middleman out of your business, attain land, acquire it, and use it. Use it to be productive. Use it for food sources, water sources, and any other type of resource that we need to survive should anything happen. In fact, don't wait. Don't look at it like that. Well, if something happened, we'll be prepared. No, don't wait for anything to happen. Produce these things now. Have them in abundance. In fact, use these your agricultural ability, to grow stuff, these resources to feed the people. Create independence by, helping the people become independent by growing our own, taking independence or dependence out of the picture and then replacing it with independence. And we can help each other do this. This is what we see occurring in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. This is also something we can see take place here in these United States, where we produce our food. We produce our poultry, our fish. We produce those products that we need to sustain us. Great example taking place over there. Great example.
There, they are building massive industrial capacity to process crops locally, from tomato processing to this sugar plant. It scales all the way up to this massive mega rice processing facility with a 400-ton daily capacity, making it one of the largest in Africa.
Wow.
The results are undeniable. This is a massive truck exporting processed liquefied butter to the international market. In fact, some of the nut products sitting in European and American supermarkets right now might have been processed inside Burkina Faso. And this is only the beginning. In this video, I'm revealing the shocking progress of how TRAORE sparked the greatest agricultural revolution on the continent, including an ambitious, multi-billion-dollar canal project to make the Sahel look like the Nile does for Egypt.
Wow.
But what's absolutely mind-blowing is the next-level technology they're using to grow fruits like apples right here. The best part, it doesn't involve IMF or World Bank loans. It is being built by the BURKINABE for the BURKINABE. Now, let's dive deep into how they are executing this entirely on their own. This is Arisen Now. Welcome. Just as Burkina Faso is fighting a fierce war against terrorist groups,
and that's the issue or the concern we were initially talking about, why a lot of what we see occurring in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger is so important to the overall context of what's taking place over there. And briefly, this terrorist issue, this so-called terrorist issue that is happening over there is not a natural state of or event, an occurrence. This is something being orchestrated by outside influences, and these outside influences actually need Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger to be distracted from all that they're accomplishing. They could keep them bogged down fighting their own brothers in that region, in the Sahel, then they can keep them, they can distract them just long enough so that they are not able to do what needs to be done. And so that those who mean them harm can find a way in, get a foothold, and help to destabilize those countries even further. The fact that they are juggling all of this, even in the face of fighting terrorists or, this proxy war for France, that's what is alleged. Even in the face of that, they're doing great things. So we want to wish the best for these people, but also at the same time, learn something from them.
it has launched an equally aggressive war against a food crisis that has plagued this desert-adjacent nation for decades.
Yeah.
This is the Agro-Pastoral and Fisheries Offensive, an almost $1 billion initiative launched by Captain Ibrahim Traore's government to end Burkina Faso's historical reliance on foreign food imports and establish absolute food sovereignty.
Nous avons lancé donc deux grosses opérations l'année passée, l'offensive agro-pastorale et aussi l'initiative présidentielle pour l'autosuffisance alimentaire.
They aim to turn millions of hectares of arid soil into arable land, creating a massive food surplus and thousands of jobs in the process.
Very good.
TRAORE began aggressively, handing farmers 400 tractors, 239 power tillers, and over 700 water pumps to plow 64,000 hectares. But what makes this truly unprecedented is that it's all free of charge, as TRAORE himself confirmed right here.
En plus de ça, donc, nous avons décidé d'acquérir environ un demi-millier de tracteurs.
In addition to that, we decided to acquire about 500 tractors for this season. It must be said that these tractors will be used to plow the land for free of charge for this rainy season, which is about to begin. The objective is to truly achieve food self-sufficiency.
L'objectif, c'est de vraiment accroître et atteindre l'autosuffisance.
Really increase.
Introducing Iron Beam, the best choice for futures trading. Iron Beam is the industry.
This was just the first wave in 2024, with equipment valued at around $130 million. It included nearly 69,000 tons of fertilizer, 18,000 tons of improved seeds, and thousands of tons of fish feed and fodder. Then, in May 2025, TRAORE shocked the world again. He escalated the offensive, handing over 608 more tractors and equipment valued at nearly $180 million. It's all funded locally by redirecting state revenues. Specifically,
now this takes from the hands of his detractors, those who want to see him fail, the ability or any accusations that he's taking this money and pocketing it for himself, that he's not doing anything for the Burkinabe people. So here's contradiction or contradictory evidence, receipts, that what they're saying about Ibrahim Traore is not true.
from the nationalization of gold mines, stripping assets from foreign control to feed the nation. In total, over $300 million in equipment has been given to farmers for free. Do you remember that around this exact time in 2025, US General Michael Langley publicly complained that Burkina's junta regime was misusing its gold reserves?
Whether it's their gold reserves, that is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime.
You see,
yeah, that's sad that he would do that. But again, we know what side his bread is buttered on. And in spite of all the lies that he went and told blatantly to that committee or commission, in spite of all that, it's proven that what he said was a lie. But this is the narrative. This is how they're painted. Because again, it doesn't pay for Western countries, France, United States, UK, and others. It doesn't pay for Burkina Faso, Mali, or Niger to do its own thing, to become independent. If that occurs, then that means there is nothing that they can do, Western countries, the EU, France, the US, there's nothing they can do to go in and extract, there's no excuse for them, to go to the United States, the United Nations, or any other organization and say, we have to go in there and protect these people. That's out the door, and this is what's so great about what Ibrahim Traore, Goita, and Ticini are doing. This is such great progression or progress here.
They weren't happy to see Traore helping his people for free, because in the Western system, there is no such thing as a free lunch.
It's all capitalism. It's all based on capitalism. It's all based on capitalism, okay? The whole market, as I was saying, it is based on capitalism. So to give the people of Burkinabe something free to improve their lives, to help them, is something that IMF, World Bank, and Western countries, France, especially US, UK, doesn't want to occur. They do not want that to happen. Were they still in control? Were they still the neo-colonizers they were 4 years ago? Then none of this, what we see taking place now, would have ever occurred. And the Burkinabe, the Malian and the Nigerian, would have received nothing from their governments, or in the governments which Westerners or the Western world call juntas, but they are military governments. They are the government, they are doing everything that, in contrary to what's being said, it's not being done. They are doing well. So yeah, there's no such thing as a free lunch. However, when the government has an opportunity, an obligation, and then an opportunity to produce for its people, to put them in a better place, a better station, by all means, that should be done. I don't think that what's being done in Burkina Faso, especially, is being done so that the people can continue to just live off the system freely. No, they're creating jobs. They're creating a certain dignity and appreciation for their homeland, for their country. And this is why you see the participation that you do coming out of Burkinabe in support of Ibrahim Traore, and as well as the leadership in Mali and Niger. Okay, let's get back to this.
Now take a look at the fruits of this initiative. Look at these green rice fields producing full, long grains. Look at the wheat growing in a place that used to be prone to severe drought. They now operate a rice processing facility that ranks among the top 10 largest in Africa.
Oh, I need
in fact, in 20...
I need to see that chart. That was very informative. Okay. Africa's top 10 rice mills by capacity. And you could pretty much determine that in due time, and this is fairly new, Burkinabe's processing of agriculture and things of that nature, and what they've accomplished in the last 2 years at least. 2024, they really started with all these projects. This is 2026, midway. You could predict in less than maybe 2 more seasons, they'll be in the top 5 in terms of capacity, what they're putting out. Great.
Top 10 largest in Africa. In fact, in 2024 alone, Burkina Faso produced 6 million tons of cereals, more than enough for their entire domestic consumption. And that doesn't even count all the fruits they are producing, or the wine brewery they recently restarted after it was reportedly sabotaged by imperialists, as TRAORE explicitly called them out.
On a tous été témoins du bradage de cette unité industrielle, et je pense que ce sont des Burkinabés, des valets locaux, qui à un moment donné ont été donc payés, je dirais, par les impérialistes, qui ont saboté et détruit tout ce qui se trouvait ici.
Before we step inside the factories and reveal the billion-dollar canal project, you need to understand the formula and who is actually doing the work. But first, let's see how they got here. TRAORE is driving this revolution through two major programs: the offensive agro-pastoral we just saw, and a unique presidential initiative designed for total statewide mobilization. It's a mandate that requires public institutions, universities, and the military to step away from their desks and into the fields. Machinery is one thing, but using it effectively at scale is another. This is where the strategy gets wild.
Imagine offering a revolutionary shopping experience where customers unlock a secure, AI-powered refrigerated storefront using just their phone's digital.
TRAORE recruited his own peer soldiers to work the land. In Burkina Faso, the state has fundamentally altered how its institutions feed themselves. Every military base in Burkina Faso is now under strict executive orders to produce its own food. By forcing soldiers to grow their own rations, using military land for crops and livestock, the armed forces are finally cutting their massive drain on the civilian budget. The military has been officially deployed as agricultural labor. When the presidential initiative rolled out, the government mobilized over 3,000 military personnel, including combat engineers and the civilian militia known as the VDPs. They were sent to work directly alongside 4,000 internally displaced persons. Together, these battalions were tasked with clearing, plowing, and harvesting over 11,000 hectares of strategic land. The military's heavy machinery is now being used to terraform and cultivate at a scale that civilian farmers could never achieve alone. And because insurgents in the Sahel have historically weaponized hunger by blockading fields, these VDPS youth militia operate under a powerful dual mandate: the rifle and the plow. They form heavily armed perimeters so locals can farm without fear, but they don't just stand guard, they get in the dirt. Just look at this intense training footage. This is a rigorous boot camp fusing agronomic science with strict military discipline. As of April 2026, over 4,600 of these agricultural VDPs, including hundreds of women, have graduated, fighting terrorism by planting seeds. They also fixed a massive intellectual gap. For years, the country's agricultural engineers sat in air-conditioned offices in the capital. TRAORE ended that. He ordered the immediate transfer of these experts out of urban ministries and directly into rural cooperatives. He even provided the motorbikes to ensure they could reach the most remote areas. By putting these engineers in the dirt with the farmers, the new tractors and hybrid seeds are being optimized the moment they hit the ground. To make it even more dramatic, they revolutionized the prison system. TRAORE personally visited the Baporo Penitentiary Center, refusing to let it remain a colonial-style holding cell. Instead, he humanized the facility. The inmates are now trained in agricultural techniques, learning to grow and care for crops using modern farming tools. In fact, they have managed to cultivate a massive 40-hectare cornfield right in the middle of a dry area. The state is turning every available human resource into a builder of the nation.
Et nous ne souhaitons pas que nos prisons soient à l'image de celles des impérialistes. Nous avons décidé d'humaniser nos prisons. Voilà pourquoi nous avons d'abord commencé à travailler avec ici l'échantillon pour que vous puissiez apprendre, vous reconvertir et être utile à la société.
Once the youth, farmers, and soldiers were mobilized, the transformation began. They started with staples: rice, maize, and wheat, because those are the calories that keep the nation alive. Historically, Burkina Faso was trapped in a post-colonial agrarian paradox. About 80% of the population worked in agriculture, yet the country functioned as a net importer of basic survival food. They were exporting raw, unrefined materials like gold and cotton to the West, while importing incredibly expensive, subsidized food just to survive. Before this revolution, the country imported 70% of its rice. nearly 700,000 metric tons. It was a massive trade deficit and a security nightmare. TRAORE knew food sovereignty was national security, so he moved fast. Look at this. 800 hectares of land completely underwater. You might wonder how they get that much water in the Sahel. Here is the story. This is the Douro perimeter, heavily engineered for dry season production and powered by the Kirchi Dam. It uses a solar-powered pumping station that delivers an incredible 9,720 cubic meters of water every single hour. This is land transformation at a pace the modern Sahel has never seen before. And just 150 kilometers away from Douro, in a place called D, where Burkina Faso meets the edge of the desert, you see the real transformation. But first, here is the harsh truth. Burkina Faso actually sits on roughly 500,000 hectares of highly developable lowlands. For decades, past governments largely ignored this geographical blessing, leaving less than 10% of it exploited. Captain TRAORE knew that spending billions to import over 700,000 tons of Asian rice every single year was an economic death trap. He knew you can't have a revolution without dams, so the state redirected capital to revive dormant irrigation zones and build new ones. Take the Soum Dam project in Nanoro. Under TRAORE's mandate, the government poured in the capital to finish it. By early 2025, the dam was fully online, watering over 1,000 hectares of previously scorched earth. It operates like a machine, engineered to pump out 7,500 tons of rice and 2,500 tons of maize every single year. Back at the Dai perimeter, you find a distinct project located just a few miles, sitting right against the Sahara's edge. It is an engineering crown jewel for a so-called third world country. Located in the Suru Valley, in Burkina's Nord region, the scheme covers 2,240 hectares of irrigated land. The engineering is fascinating. They use Archimedean screw pumps to lift water from the Suru River. From there, it flows through a gravity-fed network of canals and drains. When that water hits the arid soil, the result is a neon green sea of rice flourishing in the desert. You can see the water pooling perfectly around the thick stalks. Yields here have exploded, with some farmers reporting incomes 177% higher than rain-fed farming.
That's improvement.
Then, there is the ultimate crown jewel, located 245 kilometers southeast of the capital. The Bagre Dam and its associated growth pole, Bagre Pole, stand as the country's most ambitious agricultural infrastructure project. This strategic hub harnesses a massive 1.7 billion cubic meter reservoir on the White Volta River to transform thousands of hectares of Sahelian land into a high-tech breadbasket. It's a mix of massive gravity-fed canals and cutting-edge tech, solar pumps, automated irrigation, and laser land leveling. They even use satellite monitoring and IoT sensors to optimize every drop of water. In 2025 alone, Bagre Pole produced nearly 12,000 tons of rice. The days of slow, back-breaking manual labor are fading. Burkinabe farmers are now operating heavy harvesters that tear through fields at high speed. In places like Banzon, modern irrigation is pulling 6 tons of rice per hectare.
All right.
How do you go from zero experience to flying for one of the world's largest airlines? Let's find out.
Listen to this local farmer testifying on camera about how their harvests have exploded up to 5 tons per hectare.
Mais on ne gagne pas beaucoup. Le rendement était très faible. 10 tonnes et demi à l'hectare. Et actuellement, avec l'accompagnement et les formations dans les champs, avec le matériel, les tracteurs, actuellement on peut aller à 3 tonnes et demi.
The maize production is equally impressive.
That is impressive.
Farmers are harvesting so much corn that transport trucks are literally overflowing as they unload the grain. Rice and maize were just the warm-up. The real agricultural rebellion is happening with wheat. For decades, Western agronomists told African leaders that growing wheat in the Sahel was climatically impossible. That expert advice conveniently forced Burkina Faso to hemorrhage $75 million every single year to import 193,000 tons of wheat from places like France and Poland. TRAORE decided to test that theory himself. He launched a domestic wheat campaign in 2023 with a tiny experimental patch of just 125 hectares. The experiment worked perfectly. By the 2024 season, the state aggressively scaled that footprint to 1,342 hectares, yielding nearly 2,600 tons of wheat straight from their own soil. You can see the golden wheat fields swaying in the Burkinabe wind right here. To make sure they never have to beg foreign monopolies for seeds again, the government launched a massive 5,000-hectare wheat seed production bank. Growing millions of tons of cereals creates a massive new challenge: processing. If you export raw grain and import flour, you are still operating as a colony.
Right.
Harvesting is only step one. To secure the supply chain, TRAORE's administration began building and reviving a massive industrial base to process every single grain locally. Take a walk inside the Minofa wheat factory. Under the new regime's mandate, this facility absolutely exploded, tripling its annual production capacity from 9,000 tons to 32,000 tons today. It currently runs a 150-ton daily capacity and is preparing to expand even further. For rice, the industrial scale is equally aggressive. The state established major processing plants like the massive facility in Kamsila, which swallows and processes 400 tons of rice every single day. It is currently among the top 10 largest rice processing facilities in Africa. Watch these ultra-modern optical sorting machines filtering the local rice down to the megapixel level, packing it neatly into branded bags ready for the supermarket shelves.
All right.
His Excellency.
Now, you have to, again, tip your hat to such a extraordinary improvement in Burkina Faso, as well as you got to include Mali and Niger as well. We will do a piece on them as well. The improvement in the progression of these countries now under military leadership have done better in the last 4 to 5 years than they've done in decades. Yeah, this is something to behold, and we're happy for the Burkinabe people, as well as the Malian people and the Nigerian people, for their accomplishments and what they've done over these last few years. And I say again to Black Americans, FBA, whatever you want to label yourselves as here in the United States, this is an example. This is a learning lesson. This is a lesson we can learn from our brothers across the water in terms of independence, growing our own food, and establishing, maintaining, and owning our own water sources. You know, this is so important in this day and age, to be dependent upon anyone for anything. It would only put you in a position of dependence and at the mercy of those who may find reason not to supply you with not more than enough, but just enough to sustain yourselves and those around you. Again, we tip our hats to Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger in terms of what they've been doing over the last 3 to 4 years. This is extraordinary in and of itself. And may they continue to have great success and prosperity. All right, tell us what you think. Give us your thoughts in the comments. Let us know as to whether or not this is something that will be not only lasting, but a prime example, an example for the whole region in the Sahel. You know, what do you guys think? Do you think that this would pick up, you know, other countries will look at these models and say, okay, let's do for self? You know, let us know what you think in the comments. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.